Program updates. First and foremost, why are we talking about this now? Well, I've just had one, and it's as good a time as any to explain the importance of program updates. So this is Creative Cloud Desktop. We talked about this very briefly at the beginning as to where to get your any of the actual programs that you need. So here, as you can see, all of the programs that I have are currently up to date. However, it was the end of October. We just started. It's in November now, but in October, quite often we have major updates. Normally around October, so going into the autumn and going into the spring, so around March, April, there's another major update. So we've had an update here to Premiere Pro. If I look at other versions, we currently have Premiere Pro 22.0. and the previous version was 15.4. Now, I'm not too sure why we've leapt to version 22. I'm sure someone could explain that. I've always kept my Premiere Pro, all of my programs, up to date because there are bug fixes and a whole host of reasons why you need to keep your programs up to date. But there are also a couple of reasons why you wouldn't update, and I'll explain them now. But the fact that we're on a 0.0 is a big deal, and one that is the main reason why I'm doing this right now, because you will see a difference going forward in this tutorial, and I want to at least address why, and therefore you can have that in your knowledge base going forward. So, okay, that's all good, all up to date. Now, the first reason why I have to show you this now is because I've gone to double click the program file to open it up because I saved everything and shut it down, and I'm recording again now, and I'm greeted with this text box. Now, the project was saved in a previous version of Adobe Premiere Pro and must be converted. The original file will not be modified. That's cool. So what does this mean? Well, you cannot open a newer version of anything Adobe, but we're looking at Premiere Pro here, but this applies to all of the Adobe suite. You cannot open a newer version of Premiere Pro project with an older version of Premiere Pro. It just can't happen, purely because there are so many updates that you get with Premiere Pro that those newer files won't be compatible. They're not backwards compatible because we're always pushing forward with the updates. However, you can be forwards compatible, and that's where this text box comes in, because we've been saving our project and that was just a file name. However, what Premiere Pro wants to do now is to save a copy of this. So what this will do is it will convert our project .prpj. There is a file extension for Premiere Pro, and instead of saving it going from this point on as our project, it will be saving it as our project amendment or appending 1. So this will be the file type that you're looking for from here on in. Now, you can always go in here and delete the _1, but I like to keep those versions just in case, and it never has happened to me, but just like with the auto saves, everything is done for a reason, and it is to avoid as many headaches as possible. So I always leave this, and you'll see, let's just click through and I'll show you what happens. So you press OK, and I'm saving it. It defaults to save next to the original project. Now, if I quickly navigate to this folder, you can now see that we have our project here and then our project appended 1. That's absolutely fine. I will always leave that project because, as you've seen how easy it is, if I double click that, if something went wrong with this, obviously this wouldn't have any auto saves, but if something went wrong with this with the conversion, I could always just double click this open again. If I just do that now, it will want to convert it, but it's now given me an appending of 2 because it knows that number 1 has been created. But just to go back here, we will always still have this, and we'll always have this. So you always go for the latest version. If you've got a project that you're working on or building through and it goes through 2 versions, there will be number 2 here as well. But I've never had that. I probably will do. I have some long-term clients, and I use projects that I built 2 years ago, maybe 18 months to 2 years ago, and I always go in and we swap out different things. And anyway, but you can have, so what you would always use is the latest version of that. Is that clear? I think it is. Now, why do we have updates? Well, everything changes. As you can see, now is a really good way of explaining the reason why you should sync your settings, because I haven't been syncing my settings because I haven't wanted to override anything. But I think this is a good time to show you my workspace. It's pretty much the same as what we're working with before, but just a few minor tweaks. And first and foremost, I have the Essential Graphics tab here. Don't worry about that right now, but we will address this. And I also have a plugin, Premiere Composer. By the way, you may have noticed in your worksheet, there are links towards the bottom of that worksheet. And those will point to certain things that I discuss throughout this course that I think may help you, but I can't give them to you to download because I don't have the rights to redistribute. We will be addressing this as well, and it's a really important point. But for now, just know that if there's anything in here that doesn't necessarily come with stock Premiere Pro, I will link to it. And the great thing is, this is free. I'm not going to get to that yet because it's such an exciting thing, but you need to understand more. But yeah, so this is my main workstation. It's actually much wider normally because I am on a 34-inch ultra wide, but this is my workstation, and this is what we're going to be using from now on. The only difference is probably this has been kind of just made a little bit skinnier than where we've been working at before. But yeah, I'm happy with this. We're going to go forward with this. So the changes you need to know is that if you're not syncing your settings, your settings will be gone because you haven't synced them. Now, thankfully, I am syncing, and it's pulled in my settings even though they're not syncing, but it's pulled them in when it did a fresh install, because it's a new install. It's an upgrade, but it's a new install, so it gets rid of older versions of Premiere Pro and it installs the absolute newest. Now, the other things that you need to know are that there will be certain things that are supported in newer versions, there's a certain style of support now within Premiere Pro that can work with 10-bit and even 12-bit footage. That's going a little bit advanced right now, but the great thing with Premiere Pro is that it really is one of the editors. It's an NLE, a non-linear editor of the industry. So it's used throughout the industry. So then you get the support for pretty much all cameras and audio equipment and all that kind of stuff. So you will always get those updates, which is why it's really important to update when you can. Now, I say when you can because we spoke about this quite early on, but this is a subscription service now and you pay per month for this. The great thing is that you get the updates throughout the year, just like we've had right now. You don't have to wait for the next time, and then you don't have to pay all over again, or pay a discounted upgrade fee, which is still in the hundreds of pounds or dollars to upgrade to the newest version. But the thing is with that is that you could be halfway through a project and you don't always want to update the program straight away, because there's an argument that because of the model that Adobe use now, we are always using a beta version. We're not. It's been tested, but it's been tested to a certain level. And quite often, if you're in the middle of a project and the time is ticking down, you have a deadline to hit, and something goes wrong or something doesn't quite come over with the update, and say you're using a plugin, say like Premiere Composer, or there's another plugin that I use quite often. I don't even know if it's going to be, yeah, it is, Unimule, which is an audio leveling plugin. That's a bought one, but it's really good. And if that hasn't come over and I've already got a project with these things active, it can be a real headache. So my best advice would be, if you're in the middle of a project, I mean, I'm running between 6 and 10 projects at any time, depending on what clients have what work in. But I try and not update while I'm in the middle of a project. Now, that can be easier said than done, because you can have so many projects that are overlapping. But yeah, just be mindful of that. You can always roll back to a previous version, like you saw in there. Let me just get back to there. You can always roll back. So say I've updated this and it's not quite right and I need to step back, I can always go to here, other versions, and I can step back to 15.4.1, which was the last. I have no idea why we're at 22 now, but 15.4.1, which was the last stable version that I was running. And look, I mean, you can even go much older, but I wouldn't advise that. You just don't have the support. But yeah, so update as often as you can. I just wouldn't have auto updates on, because it might update in the middle of a project, and you do not want that. You just don't. Just yeah. As I said, this is a little bit of a crowbarred section put in here, but I needed to show you before we went any further, and I hope you can appreciate why.